Hey, what is up, mortals? It is AC here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 14 of What If Sir Night-Eye Trained Deku. I just want to greet you guys by saying, sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So here we begin. As he predicted, it ended up being a really rough day. Okay, that was probably just a euphemism. In truth, the day had absolutely and completely sucked, and Izuku was convinced that there was a god somewhere and that said god was out to get him. Preferably by employing the efforts of one Todoroki Shoto, who hadn't stopped gunning for him for a single second. See, he was half sure this whole scenario had something to do with All Might and his position as the #1 hero. Like the League had seen All Might as the pillar to tear down till they want to send society crumbling down, Izuku's fellow students would see him as either a threat or a walking and talking ticket to victory. Neither were particularly desirable in what was supposed to be a team game. Or at all, really. Izuku wasn't Bakugo, and having people afraid of messing with him just left something of a sour taste in his mouth. Honestly, his first instinct was to let panic freeze him over. Izuku was a skittish person at heart, and this kind of isolation was entirely too familiar to the boy's own tastes. However, keeping his wits about him had been one of the most important things he'd learned from Sir, and Izuku knew he wouldn't have long to waste in his panicked rush. No, he'd need to plan, and that meant he needed to consider the game at hand. In this cavalry battle, the horses were inevitably more important than the rider themselves, despite it probably looking like the opposite was true. From the top of his head, he could think of the ideal horses and riders already. Sarah would be an amazing rider, exploiting his increased reach and thoroughly as long as he had people to maneuver him well. Yaozu was also an amazing rider, and would most likely have her usefulness incredibly reduced should she be a horse. However, the ace would inevitably be Uraraka-san! Deku! You know what? Sorry for the earlier comment, God. That right there sounded and looked like a real miracle from the heavens, and Izuku couldn't stop the grin that split his face when he laid eyes on Ochako's approaching figure. Wanna team up? He tried to sound as confident as he could in his offer, but, truthfully, his voice wobbled a bit. Ochako, bless her heart, didn't seem bothered in the least. She empathetically nodded in return, and Izuku had to fight the urge to look away. This girl could outshine the sun, he swore. Yep! That's what I was going to suggest, actually. One step ahead, huh, Izuku? Izuku let out a nervous giggle. Not quite, he stammered out, shaking his head to break out of his stupor. Are you sure, though? Everyone will be gunning for me because of, the millions of points. It's all right, I think. All we have to do is dodge, right? In the end, I'd rather team up with a friend than a random stranger, Plus, you totally kicked ass out there! Yeah, he concluded, lips quivering in a smile again. Definitely too bright. In the end, Izuku's team turned out to consist of himself as rider and Uraraka, Togoyami, and a girl named Mei Hatsume as horses. It was a little disheartening, though he was sure to empathetically announce to both of his teammates that it was nothing wrong with them to learn that Ida didn't want to team up with him. He got it, of course. Self-improvement was key, but it drove a certain comment a little further in. Truly, they weren't there to make friends. Likewise, both Sero and Jiro had already teamed up by the time he'd gotten around to asking them for their participation, and he didn't know nearly enough about people from other classes to risk planning them in. Even the support girl, Hatsume Mei, was a bit of a wild gamble, though Izuku knew she was both smart enough to play around her limitations and would most likely compensate for their limitation in gadget variety. He felt a little bad for doing so, but in the end, the plan he'd imagined for Sero worked decently well with Tokoyami as well. With less reach and more attacking power, it was something of a trait he would most certainly have to consider at all times, but Izuku felt confident in his odds. We must be mindful of our surroundings at all times, Midoriya, Tokoyami declared dramatically, looking back at him with the same look of grim determination Izuku had quickly learned to associate with the shadowy boy. Bright colors denounce danger in the wild, but no hunters care for the safety of their prey. We must endeavor not to lose our crown and become hunted. Izuku thought Tokoyami would do great in a Shakespearean play. Right, he uttered instead, resolutely nodding. I will. Everyone remember the plan? A sequence of nods answered his question, and Izuku closed his eyes, took a deep breath in, and smiled. All right, start! came Midnight's announcement, parting the silence like a hot knife through butter, and chaos broke free of the reins that had shut it in. Almost immediately, the floor rumbled and rippled like an earthquake through a pond, and Izuku's eyes widened as he noticed they started to sink, as if standing on quicksand. Someone's quirk, obviously, but they'd prepared for this. The rush of the surprisingly potent jetpack silenced the screams of, "I'll get you, Midoriya!" and similar cries, and within a second, they were high in the air and as triumphant as they could be. Jiro's earphone jack was slapped away by the triumphant dark shadow, though Izuku found himself frowning at the lost chances to stabilize their team. Uraraka's quirk came in handy in more ways than one. Not only was it an amazing quirk for movement by itself, but it was amazingly versatile. He'd originally envisioned combining it with Zero or Ida, but it matched Hatsume's gadgets just as well. "If she tries again, pull," he announced as they descended, getting a nod from Tokoyami and Dark Shadow both. "We can either destabilize their horse or get them close enough to hit." Dark Shadow slammed its arm into the once again solid ground as they landed, breaking it up to scatter any possible traps, and, as the large hand of Dark Shadow handed Izuku a bunch of stones and other pebbles, he smirked. "Deku, to our right!" His head snapped right almost immediately as his team regained its footing, and he immediately saw Shoji's rapid approach, a strangle shell-like formation on his back. He was alone, or so it appeared, but Izuku saw right through it. He saw it right then, the moment the boy's eyes widened, and he moved to close the strangle formation up. But it was too late, and Izuku had already launched a stone into the entrance he'd left exposed at lightning-fast speeds, and heard the ensuing cry of pain immediately. Mineta. This wouldn't last long, and Mineta was, surprisingly enough, a deadly opponent to try and fight in a cavalry battle, where movement and stability were challenges as difficult as stealing headbands, or in their case, protecting theirs could be. The last thing Izuku wanted was another minefield. "Let's dash!" "As you wish." Izuku felt a bit like a Pokemon trainer, giving orders and seeing them fulfilled. It was also a humbling experience. He and Uraraka were as close as he'd ever been with another human being, but to see both Tokoyami, with whom he'd only spoken once or twice, and a complete stranger in the form of Hatsume Mei, both listen to his strategies this willingly, was a reminder of the weight of his current burden. Wait just one moment. Is someone screaming his name, or... Oh no. "Deku!" Bakugo descended upon them with all the rage of an entire pantheon of gods of war, murder in his wild eyes and explosions dancing in his palms. Izuku reared back with a punch of his own, one for all winding up in his gut like a whirlpool of liquid fire, and he saw Tokoyami's dark shadow rearing up to try and block. It wasn't fast enough, however. It was all he could do to twist its head out of the way, and from that angle, Izuku could see the lines of Sero's tape holding Bakugo and Sero together. Was that really legal? Boom! His explosion drew a pained gasp from both Izuku as he blocked it with the forearm, shredding skin and spreading blood through the air. Bakugo's expression was somewhere between victorious and startled, as if he hadn't expected it to be that easy. It wasn't. Sero moved to pull Bakugo back, which was most likely how they'd planned on playing this for the time being. Hit and run was, after all, notoriously effective. However, "Fear not, for I have listened to your advice, Midoriya Izuku," announced Tokoyami. "What the hell?" Dark Shadow's hand, tight around Bakugo's ankle, triumphantly pulled with more force than Izuku had believed the creature to be capable of. Bakugo's trajectory was promptly interrupted, and still within striking range, Izuku did him the honor of helping him get to his teammate by slamming his fist in his cheek with the force of his 10% full cowling behind it. This time, it wasn't Izuku's blood that met the cold air. "Dash!" he announced again, and they were cutting a U-turn and dashing away from the enraged Bakugo Katsuki before he could try and attack once again. The same trick wouldn't work twice on an opponent as intelligent as Katsuki, so he dashed away from him, towards an area that would hopefully be safer. They'd survived so far, and this wasn't a particularly long game. More than that, their skirmishes with the three teams they'd already met and the dwindling of time as a resource meant that most teams had given up on chasing after them and were now fighting one another for a spot in the top 10. They were probably safe. The sound of shattering ice echoed hollowly inside his skull as Dark Shadow violently crushed an oncoming pillar of ice. They twisted from their current goal, turning back to stare at the source of such an attack. Todoroki Shoto stared right back, impassive in his cold determination, and sitting atop Ida's shoulders. He met Izuku's frantic gaze coldly, as if completely unbothered by his presence. "Not long, folks! Can the folks of 1B Star Team continue ascending? Will our golden rookie stick to his prize, or will our challenging team rip off their crown in one fell swoop? You only have a minute left, kiddos, so make the most of it!" "It's time," Todoroki slowly announced. I'm taking it. Dream on, Izuku replied. He had no plans of going down. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes deep into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We the Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I would like to extend out an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being we only accept members 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be, whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have a great day.